Commander Jessica Walsh stood in the observation deck of the Terran Defense Station, watching Mars spin slowly below. The red planet looked peaceful from this distance, but Jessica knew better. Peace in space was always temporary. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but she kept holding the mug anyway. It gave her hands something to do while her mind worked through the morning reports. The communications center behind her buzzed with quiet activity. Technicians monitored signals from across the solar system, tracking everything from merchant ships to deep space explorers. It was routine work mostly, until it wasn't. "Commander Walsh, you need to see this." Lieutenant Davis called from his station, his voice tight with concern. Jessica set down her mug and walked over. Davis was young, maybe 25, but he had good instincts. When he sounded worried, she listened. "What do you have?" she asked, looking at the display screen. "Intercepted transmission from the Outer Rim. It's addressed to Earth's Planetary Council. The sender claims to represent something called the Galactic Council." Davis pulled up the decoded message. "They want to meet with human representatives. Says it's about territorial rights." Jessica read the message twice. The language was formal, almost pompous. The aliens were demanding that humans send delegates to settle a dispute over the Kepler 442b system. The star system was 3 weeks away by jump drive, rich in rare minerals that Earth needed for its expanding colonies. "When did this come in?" Jessica asked. 20 minutes ago. I've been running it through our translation programs to make sure we got it right." Davis highlighted several sections of text. "The interesting part is here. They're not asking us to negotiate. They're telling us to come and accept their decision." Jessica felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. She had seen this kind of message before, back when she was serving on the frontier colonies. Species that thought humans were weak often used this tone. They expected quick surrender or foolish aggression. Either response usually ended badly for humanity. "Who's backing this?" "Galactic Council?" she asked. According to the message, 12 different species. The main ones seem to be called the Valorians and something called the Nexus Empire. Davis brought up what little information they had on file. "We don't know much about either group. The Valorians appear to be warriors based on the few encounters our deep space scouts have reported. The Nexus Empire is more mysterious. Very advanced technology, but they prefer to work through other species." Jessica studied the star charts showing the Kepler 442b system. 3 habitable planets, 2 gas giants perfect for fuel harvesting, and asteroid belts loaded with platinum and rare Earth elements. It was exactly the kind of system that growing civilizations fought over. "Have you sent this to Earth yet?" she asked. "Waiting for your approval, Commander, but there's something else." Davis looked uncomfortable. "The message includes a deadline. They want our representatives at a place called Harmony 7 within 2 weeks. That's barely enough time to get there, even with our fastest ships." Jessica nodded. Short deadlines were another classic intimidation tactic, force the other side to make quick decisions without proper planning. Most species fell for it. Humans had learned not to. "Send the message to Earth immediately, mark it urgent but not panic level, then get me everything we have on these Valorians and the Nexus Empire. I want to know what we're dealing with." "Yes, Commander." Davis began typing rapidly. "Should I also prepare the defensive fleet?" "Not yet, but put them on standby. If this goes badly, we'll need to be ready." Jessica looked back at Mars, thinking about the 1,000,000 colonists living in the domed cities below. They were counting on Earth to handle this situation carefully. The response from Earth came 6 hours later. Jessica had expected bureaucratic delays, committee meetings, and lengthy debates. Instead, she got a short message from Admiral Thompson himself. "Walsh, you know the frontier better than anyone in the fleet. Pick our delegation and get them to this meeting. Full authority to negotiate. Don't let them push us around, but don't start a war either. Good luck." Jessica stared at the message for a full minute. She had been expecting orders, not responsibility for choosing Earth's representatives. The weight of it settled on her shoulders like a heavy coat. She called up personnel files from across the fleet. They needed someone who understood both diplomacy and military tactics. Someone who wouldn't be intimidated by alien posturing, but also wouldn't resort to violence as a first option. Captain Michael Rodriguez caught her attention immediately. He had served on the frontier for 15 years, dealing with hostile species and delicate first contact situations. His record showed a perfect balance of firmness and flexibility. More importantly, he had never lost a negotiation, and never started an unnecessary fight. For scientific support, she chose Dr. Emily Carter. The xenoanthropologist had written the standard texts on alien psychology and culture. If anyone could figure out what these species really wanted, it would be Carter. The military representative was easier to choose, Lieutenant Commander James. Parker had trained at the War College and served in 3 different combat zones. But unlike most military officers, Parker understood that the best victory was the one that didn't require fighting. Jessica drafted orders for all 3 officers. The ship Resilience would carry them to Harmony 7. It was fast enough to make the journey in time, and well-armed enough to handle trouble if negotiations failed. As she prepared the final reports for Earth, Jessica wondered what kind of species they would find at Harmony 7. The Valorians sounded like typical warriors, all aggression and honor codes. The Nexus Empire was more concerning. Advanced civilizations that worked through proxy species usually had complex political goals, but humans had advantages that most aliens didn't expect. They were adaptable, creative, and surprisingly good at finding common ground with former enemies. Jessica had seen it happen before. Species that started as threats often ended up as allies, once they understood how humans really thought. The Resilience launched 3 days later, carrying humanity's hopes toward an uncertain meeting with 12 alien species. Jessica watched it disappear into the star field, wondering if she had chosen the right people for an impossible job. She would find out soon enough. The Resilience dropped out of jump space near Harmony 7 with a flash of blue light. Captain Michael Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching the space station grow larger on the main screen. It was massive, easily 10 times bigger than any human station. Multiple docking arms extended like metal tentacles, and ships of various alien designs floated nearby. "Impressive engineering," said Dr. Emily Carter, joining Rodriguez at the observation window. She carried a tablet loaded with every piece of alien cultural data they had managed to gather during the 2-week journey. "Look at those hull designs. At least 6 different construction methods. This station was built by multiple species working together." Lieutenant Commander James Parker checked his weapons readings from the tactical station. 12 alien ships detected. Various sizes and power signatures. They're not hiding their firepower. He paused, studying the displays. "But they're not actively targeting us either. Professional military spacing." Rodriguez nodded. "Good. That means they want to talk, not fight, at least not yet." He activated the ship's communication system. "Harmony 7 Control, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Terran vessel Resilience, requesting permission to dock." The reply came in heavily accented but clear English. "Terran vessel, you are expected. Proceed to docking Arm 7. Ambassador, Beck will meet you there." As the Resilience moved toward the station, Rodriguez studied the alien ships through the viewports. Each design was completely different from human engineering. One ship looked like it was grown rather than built, with organic curves and what might have been living tissue. Another was perfectly geometric, all sharp angles and crystalline surfaces that caught the light strangely. "Nervous?" Carter asked. "Quietly? Always," Rodriguez admitted. "But that's good. Keeps me sharp." He straightened his dress uniform and checked that his translation device was working properly. "Remember, we're not here to impress them with our strength. We're here to understand what they really want." The docking procedure went smoothly. Harmony 7's systems were advanced enough to handle human technology without problems. When the airlock finally opened, Rodriguez got his first look at Ambassador Thek. The Valorian was enormous, nearly 8 feet tall, with dark green scales that looked thick enough to stop bullets. His head was elongated like a crocodile's, but his eyes showed clear intelligence. He wore what looked like ceremonial armor, decorated with symbols that probably indicated rank and achievement. "So," Thek said in a voice like grinding stone, "these are the humans." He looked down at Rodriguez with obvious disappointment. "You are smaller than I expected." "Ambassador Thek," Rodriguez replied calmly, offering a slight bow. "Thank you for arranging this meeting. I'm Captain Rodriguez. This is Dr. Carter and Lieutenant Commander Parker." He gestured to his companions. "We're honored to represent humanity in these discussions." Thek's massive head tilted slightly. He had probably expected defensive posturing or aggressive challenges. Polite formality seemed to confuse him. "Follow me," Thek said after a moment. "The council waits." They walked through corridors that changed design every few hundred meters. Human sections with clean lines and practical layouts gave way to Valorian areas with high ceilings and dramatic lighting. Then came zones that looked like they belonged underwater, with curved walls and soft blue illumination. "Fascinating," Carter whispered, taking notes on her tablet. "Each species contributed to the station's design. This level of cooperation suggests they can work together when necessary." The council chamber was a large circular room with different sections adapted for each species' needs. Some areas had extra oxygen, others had different gravity fields. Rodriguez counted representatives from 12 different species. Just as the original message had indicated, Thek took his place at what was clearly the primary position. To his right sat a being that looked almost human, except for pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to reflect light like mirrors. This had to be High Counselor Vex from the Nexus Empire. "Humans," Thek announced to the assembled representatives, "you have come to answer for your intrusion into Galactic Council territory. The Kepler 442b system belongs to established civilizations, not newcomers who stumble around the galaxy without permission." Rodriguez stepped forward. Instead of responding to the accusation immediately, he looked around the room, studying each representative with genuine curiosity. "Before we discuss territorial claims," he said, "may I ask about your species? Read what little information we have, but I'd like to understand your cultures better. Ambassador Thek, the Valorians have a warrior tradition, correct? What are the core values that guide your people?" Thek blinked, clearly not expecting the question. "We value strength, honor, and the protection of our people." "Why do you ask such things?" "Because understanding each other is the foundation of any meaningful agreement," Rodriguez replied. He turned to High Counselor Vex. "And the Nexus Empire? What drives your civilization?" Vex's mirror-like eyes studied Rodriguez carefully. "Efficiency. Order. The logical allocation of resources for maximum benefit." His voice was precisely modulated, each word carefully chosen. "We eliminate waste and conflict through superior planning." Rodriguez nodded and continued around the room. He asked the crystalline beings about their energy manipulation techniques. He inquired about the aquatic species' underwater cities. Each question was respectful and genuinely interested. Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Captain Rodriguez isn't just being polite," she explained to the increasingly confused alien representatives. "Human diplomatic doctrine requires us to understand the underlying motivations of all parties before attempting negotiations. We found that most conflicts arise from misunderstandings rather than genuine incompatibility. This is unusual," admitted a representative whose species looked like living plants. "Most challenges begin with demonstrations of power." "Speaking of challenges," Thek interrupted, his patience clearly running out, "you humans must prove you deserve any claim to the Kepler system. Valorian tradition demands trial by combat. You will face our champion in the arena." Parker stepped forward slightly, but Rodriguez held up a hand. "We accept the challenge," Rodriguez said, causing Parker to look at him in surprise. "However, I'd like to propose a modification to your traditional format, something that might be more educational for everyone involved." Thek's eyes narrowed. "What modification? Instead of simple combat, what if we designed a challenge that demonstrates how our species might work together? The Kepler system is large enough for multiple colonies if they're planned correctly." High Counselor Vex leaned forward with interest. "Explain," Rodriguez smiled. "Give us access to your arena and your holographic systems. Let us show you what humans bring to any partnership. If we fail to impress you, we'll withdraw our claim. If we succeed—" He looked around the room. "Perhaps we can find a solution that benefits everyone." The alien representatives exchanged glances. This wasn't what they had expected from the supposedly weak humans. "Very well," Thek said finally. "Tomorrow, in the arena. But know this, human. If your demonstration fails, you leave this system forever." "Understood," Rodriguez replied. "And if it succeeds, we discuss how 12 species plus humanity might accomplish more together than any of us could alone." As they were escorted to their quarters, Parker whispered, "Sir, what exactly are we going to demonstrate tomorrow?" Rodriguez grinned. "How to turn a fight into a lesson, Commander. How to turn enemies into allies." The arena on Harmony 7 was built for violence. Lieutenant Commander James Parker stood at the entrance, looking at the scarred metal walls and stained floor. Alien spectators filled the viewing areas above, their various forms creating a bizarre audience. Some hung from the ceiling like bats, others floated in tanks of liquid, and a few glowed with their own internal light. "Intimidating place," Dr. Emily Carter said, adjusting the portable holographic projector strapped to Parker's back. The device was barely noticeable under his combat vest, but it contained everything they needed for their demonstration. "That's the point," Parker replied. He checked his equipment one more time. No weapons, as requested, but plenty of tools that the aliens wouldn't recognize as dangerous. "Remember, I'm not trying to win a fight. I'm trying to start a conversation. Captain." Rodriguez stood with the alien representatives in the control booth overlooking the arena. Ambassador Thek looked confident, his massive claws tapping against the railing. The Valorian champion, Warrior Prime Drax, was even larger than Thek, with scars covering his dark scales. He carried a weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and a club. "Your human looks small," Thek observed. "Drax has never lost a challenge. This will be quick." "Perhaps," Rodriguez said calmly. "But remember, we modified the rules. This isn't just about combat anymore." High Counselor Vex watched from his position near the environmental controls. His pale blue fingers moved constantly over a datapad, calculating odds and outcomes. "The human brings no weapons. How does he expect to survive against a Valorian warrior?" "Let's find out," Rodriguez said. The arena doors opened. Drax entered from the opposite side, roaring a battle cry that echoed off the metal walls. The alien spectators responded with cheers, clicks, and sounds that human ears couldn't properly interpret. They expected bloodshed. Parker walked calmly to the center of the arena. Instead of taking a fighting stance, he activated the holographic projector. A three-dimensional map of the Kepler 442b system appeared in the air above him, showing the 3 planets, gas giants, and asteroid fields. In perfect detail, Drax stopped roaring and stared at the display. This wasn't what he had expected. "Warrior Prime Drax!" Parker called out, his voice carried by the arena's sound system. "Before we begin, I want to show you something interesting about the system we're all fighting over." The hologram zoomed in on the second planet. It was a desert world with massive temperature swings between day and night. Most species would find it completely uninhabitable. "This planet reaches temperatures of 200 degrees during the day," Parker explained, slowly walking around the holographic display. "Too hot for humans, too hot for most of the species here today, but Valorians evolved on a world with extreme heat, didn't they? Drax looked confused. He glanced up at Ambassador Thek, who was staring intently at the hologram. The mineral deposits on this planet are incredible, Parker continued. Rare metals that our civilizations need for advanced technology. But the mining operations would require workers who can function in extreme heat, workers like Valorians. Drax finally charged forward, but Parker was ready. Instead of trying to match the warrior's strength, he used the arena's obstacles. He ducked behind a metal barrier, rolled under a platform, and kept moving while continuing to talk. The third planet is different, Parker said, breathing hard but still focused on his demonstration. He adjusted the hologram to show an ice world with vast frozen oceans. Too cold for Valorians, but perfect for the crystalline collective. One of the crystal beings in the audience leaned forward, interested despite themselves. Parker dodged another charge from Drax, this time vaulting over a low wall. The Valorian warrior was strong and fast, but the human was using the environment in ways that Drax hadn't anticipated. The gas giants could provide fuel for everyone, Parker continued, adjusting the display again. But harvesting gas giant resources requires precision and planning, the kind of mathematical perfection that the Nexus Empire specializes in. High Counselor Vex looked up from his data pad, his mirror eyes reflecting the holographic display. Drax cornered Parker against one of the arena walls. The massive warrior raised his weapon, ready to end the demonstration. But instead of cowering or trying to fight, Parker did something unexpected. He offered Drax his hand. "Warrior Prime," Parker said, looking directly into the alien's reptilian eyes. "What if, instead of fighting over who gets to exclude everyone else, we figured out how to include everyone? What if we turned this competition into cooperation?" Drax hesitated, his weapon still raised. The arena fell silent except for the hum of the holographic projector. Parker used the moment to expand the display, showing mining operations on the hot planet with Valorian workers, research stations on the ice world staffed by crystalline beings, and orbital refineries managed by Nexus efficiency experts. "Humans are good at adaptation," Parker said. "We can work in environments that others can't, and we're excellent at coordinating complex operations. But we can't do everything. No single species can," he pointed to the hologram. "But together, we could make the Kepler system the most productive colonial operation in the galaxy. Everyone benefits. Everyone has a role. Everyone gets a fair share of the resources." Drax slowly lowered his weapon. He stared at the holographic display, seeing his own people working alongside species he had considered enemies just minutes ago. From the control booth, Ambassador Thek's voice boomed across the arena. "This is not combat. This is not the Valorian way." Parker looked up at the viewing area. "With respect, Ambassador, this is combat. We're fighting ignorance with knowledge, fear with understanding, and scarcity with abundance. The strongest warrior isn't always the one who can defeat his enemies. Sometimes it's the one who can turn enemies into allies." Drax stepped closer to the hologram, studying the projected mining operations. "These temperature readings," he said slowly, "they are accurate?" "Completely accurate," Parker replied. "We've been studying the system for months. The mineral wealth is real, and the environmental challenges are exactly what your people are naturally equipped to handle." The Valorian warrior looked at Parker with something approaching respect. "You did not fight me. I fought for something better than victory," Parker said. "I fought for a solution that benefits everyone, including you." In the viewing area, representatives from 12 different species were studying the holographic display with new interest. The aquatic species noticed underwater mining possibilities they hadn't considered. The plant-like beings saw agricultural opportunities on the temperate zones of the first planet. High Counselor Vex stood up, his calculating mind already running through the economic possibilities. The efficiency gains from species specialization would be significant, he said, more to himself than anyone else. Ambassador Thek was less convinced. Pretty pictures and clever words, he growled. But this proves nothing about human strength or worthiness. Parker smiled and looked directly at Thek. Ambassador, we just convinced your greatest warrior to consider cooperation instead of conquest, using nothing but information and respect. If that's not strength, what is? Drax extended his massive hand toward Parker. When the human took it, the arena erupted in surprised sounds from a dozen different species. This human fights with his mind, Drax announced. This is a warrior I can respect. The holographic display continued to rotate above them, showing a future where former enemies worked together to build something greater than any of them could achieve alone. The arena had become something no one expected. Representatives from 12 alien species crowded around the holographic display, asking questions and pointing at different parts of the Kepler system projection. What started as a combat trial had turned into the galaxy's strangest planning meeting. Dr. Emily Carter stood next to the hologram, answering questions with the enthusiasm of a teacher who had found eager students. A representative from the Crystalline Collective, whose body looked like living diamond, was particularly interested in the energy requirements for the ice planet operations. Your species can store and redirect energy naturally, Carter explained. The ice world has massive geothermal vents under the frozen surface. You could harvest that energy and distribute it to the mining operations on the hot planet. The crystal being pulsed with soft blue light, which Carter had learned meant excitement. This would be efficient, much more efficient than our current energy distribution methods. Ambassador Thek watched this exchange with growing confusion. The Valorian had expected a simple demonstration of human weakness, followed by their quick surrender. Instead, his warriors were discussing mining techniques with the very species they had considered enemies an hour ago. This is not how challenges work, Thek said to Captain Rodriguez. There should be victory or defeat, clear outcomes. Rodriguez smiled. There is a clear outcome, Ambassador. Everyone wins. High Counselor Vex stepped closer to the holographic display, his calculating mind working through the possibilities. The Nexus Empire had built its power on controlling resources and creating scarcity, but the human proposal suggested something different, something that could be more profitable than traditional conquest. The coordination required for this operation would be complex, Vex said, studying the projected supply chains. Multiple species, different environmental requirements, various communication protocols. Lieutenant Commander Parker nodded. Complex, but not impossible. Humans have experience coordinating large-scale operations with diverse groups. We could provide the logistical framework that makes it all work. And why would humans do this? Asked a representative whose species looked like giant insects. What benefit do you gain from helping others succeed? Carter stepped forward. Because when our partners succeed, we succeed. When the Valorians mine rare metals efficiently, we get better materials for our technology. When the Crystalline Collective provides clean energy, our colonies run better. When the Nexus Empire optimizes our supply chains, everyone saves time and resources. Warrior Prime Drax, who had been quietly studying the display, suddenly spoke up. This human speaks truth. In battle, the strongest army is not always the one with the biggest warriors. It is the one where every warrior knows their role and trusts their companions. Ambassador Thek looked at his champion with surprise. You compare this to warfare? Because it is warfare, Drax replied. Warfare against waste, against hunger, against the emptiness between stars. These humans fight battles worth winning. The insect representative clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. Our hive minds are excellent at detailed work. Precision manufacturing, electronic components. But we need raw materials and energy sources, which the Valorians and Crystalline Collective can provide, Parker added. while human logistics keep everything moving smoothly. High Counselor Vex raised his hand for attention. His mirror eyes reflected the holographic display as he spoke. This proposal has merit, but there are political complications. The Nexus Empire has existing agreements with several species here, agreements that assume scarcity-based economics. Rodriguez sensed an opportunity. What kind of agreements, Counselor? Vex hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the question. Resource, allocation treaties, military defense pacts, standard expansion protocols. Expansion into whose territory? Carter asked innocently. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Several of the alien representatives looked at each other with sudden understanding. The plant-like being spoke. First, the Nexus Empire has been encouraging territorial disputes, it said slowly. They offered military support to various species in exchange for exclusive resource rights. Ambassador Thek's eyes narrowed as he looked at Vex. You told us the humans were planning to claim the entire Kepler system. You said they were a threat to established species. That intelligence was accurate based on available data, Vex said carefully. Rodriguez stepped into the growing tension. Counselor Vex, may I ask who provided that intelligence about human intentions? Vex's pale blue skin seemed to grow even paler. Nexus Empire intelligence services are very thorough. I'm sure they are, Rodriguez said calmly. But we've been monitoring communications from the Kepler system for months. The only territorial claims we've detected came from Nexus Empire survey ships. They've been mapping the system and establishing preliminary mining rights without consulting any other species. The arena fell silent, except for the hum of the holographic projector. 12 species of aliens stared at High Counselor Vex, who was clearly calculating his options. Furthermore, Carter added, pulling up new data on her tablet, we've detected similar patterns in 3 other star systems. The Nexus Empire identifies valuable resources, then creates artificial conflicts between local species. While everyone is fighting, Empire ships move in and establish mining operations, the crystalline being pulsed with angry red light. The Nexus Empire told us that the Valorians were planning to invade our energy production facilities. Ambassador, Thek's claws extended slightly. And they told us that the Crystalline Collective was preparing to cut off energy supplies to Valorian colonies. Both false, Rodriguez said. Classic divide-and-conquer tactics. Keep potential allies fighting each other while the real threat moves in behind everyone. Vex finally spoke, his voice still carefully modulated. The Nexus Empire seeks efficiency and order. Sometimes that requires difficult decisions. Like starting wars between innocent species? Parker asked. Like preventing chaos through superior planning, Vex replied coldly. Drax stepped closer to Vex, his massive frame casting a shadow over the Nexus representative. You used Valorian honor to make us fight your battles. You made us enemies of those who should be our allies. I provided you with accurate threat assessments, Vex said, but his confidence was clearly shaken. Carter pulled up more data. We have communication intercepts showing Nexus Empire ships in all the disputed systems. They've been playing different species against each other for years. The insect representative's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Our hive lost 3 colonies to wars that the Nexus Empire claimed were necessary for our protection. Ambassador Thek looked around the arena, seeing his fellow representatives with new eyes. How many of our conflicts were real? How many were manufactured by the Empire? Most of them, Rodriguez said quietly. We've been tracking this pattern. For months, the Nexus Empire benefits from chaos and scarcity. Peace and cooperation threaten their entire economic model. High Counselor Vex looked around the arena, realizing that 12 species plus humanity were all staring at him with growing anger and understanding. This meeting is over, Vex announced, turning toward the exit. Actually, Rodriguez said, I think it's just beginning. High Counselor Vex moved toward the arena exit but found his path blocked by Warrior Prime Drax. The massive Valorian crossed his arms and shook his head slowly. Nexus Empire representatives do not leave during Valorian challenges, Drax said. That would be dishonorable. I am not bound by your primitive honor codes, Vex replied, but his usual confidence was cracking. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. Counselor, you might want to stay. We haven't finished our demonstration yet. Your demonstration proved nothing except human skill at manipulation, Vex said coldly. Rodriguez smiled and activated his communication device. Commander Walsh, are you receiving? The voice of Commander Jessica Walsh came through clearly, transmitted from the Terran Defense Station orbiting Mars. Loud and clear, Captain. We've been monitoring your progress. Impressive work down there. The alien representatives looked around in confusion. Several pointed their own communication devices at the source of the transmission, trying to understand how humans were broadcasting across interstellar distances without detectable equipment. Commander, please transmit the files we discussed, Rodriguez said. New holographic displays appeared around the arena, showing detailed star charts, communication intercepts, and financial records. The data painted a clear picture of Nexus Empire. Manipulation across dozens of star systems. Dr. Emily Carter stepped to one of the displays. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, what you're seeing is 3 years of intelligence gathering. Every artificial conflict, every manufactured crisis, every war that made the Nexus Empire rich while other species suffered. Ambassador Thek studied a display showing Valorian colony ships being redirected away from resource-rich systems. These routes were recommended by Nexus Empire advisors. They said the original destinations were too dangerous because the Empire wanted those systems for themselves, Carter explained. They've been systematically guiding species away from the most valuable territories while claiming them through shell corporations and proxy governments. The crystalline being pulsed with angry red light. Our energy trade agreements with the Empire. They were negotiated after we lost access to 3 major power sources. Sources that the Empire said were compromised by hostile forces. Hostile forces that didn't exist, Lieutenant Commander Parker added. The Empire created the problems, then sold you the solutions. High Counselor Vex looked at the displays with calculated calm, but sweat was forming on his pale blue skin. Intelligence operations are complex. Misunderstandings are possible. These aren't misunderstandings, Rodriguez said. He activated another display showing financial transfers between Empire accounts and mercenary groups. These are payments to raiders who attacked colony ships from 7 different species, the same raiders who coincidentally never touched Empire vessels. The insect representative's mandibles clicked rapidly. The Hive remembers those attacks. They cost us thousands of lives and forced us to accept Empire protection contracts. Protection from threats that the Empire created, Carter said. Commander Walsh's voice came through the communicator again. Captain Rodriguez, you should know that we've shared this intelligence with the Galactic Council's Oversight Committee. They're very interested in discussing the Empire's expansion methods. Vex's composure finally cracked. You cannot prove criminal intent. The Empire's actions were within legal boundaries established by galactic law. Legal, maybe, Rodriguez replied, but hardly ethical, and definitely not in the best interests of galactic peace. Ambassador Thek stepped closer to Vex, his massive frame intimidating even at a distance. You made the Valorians fight wars against innocent species. You dishonored us by making us tools of your greed. The Valorians benefited from those conflicts, Vex said desperately. You gained territory and resources. We gained nothing but the hatred of potential allies, Drax said, while you gained control of 3 star systems that we conquered for you. The plant-like representative swayed slightly, a sign of deep thought in their species. The pattern is clear now. The Empire identifies resources, creates conflicts to claim them, then uses those resources to fund more conflicts. A cycle of artificial scarcity and manufactured war. Carter nodded. Exactly. But it only works if species remain isolated and suspicious of each other. Cooperation breaks the entire system. which is why the Empire opposed the Kepler system negotiations, Parker added. If 12 species plus humanity can work together successfully, it proves their model is wrong. High Counselor Vex looked around the arena, seeing 13 species, united against him. His mirror eyes reflected the holographic evidence of his civilization's manipulation. The Nexus Empire will not accept this interference in our legitimate business interests, he said, trying to regain his authority. The Nexus Empire, Rodriguez said calmly, doesn't have a choice anymore. New ships appeared on the arena's external monitors. The sleek lines of human vessels mixed with the organic curves of Valorian warships, the geometric precision of crystalline collective energy platforms, and the efficient designs of ships from 6 other species. While we were talking down here, Rodriguez explained, our respective fleets were having their own conversations in space. Turns out, when species actually communicate instead of fighting, they can coordinate very quickly. Commander Walsh's voice returned. We have 18 Empire vessels surrounded by 47 ships from 8 different species. The Empire fleet is requesting permission to withdraw. Vex stared at the monitors in disbelief. Impossible. Those species hate each other. We made sure of it. You made them think they hated each other, Carter corrected. But hatred based on lies disappears quickly when the truth comes out. Ambassador Thek studied the fleet positions with a warrior's eye for tactics. Beautiful coordination, multiple species working as one force. This is what real strength looks like, the crystalline being pulsed with approving blue light. The energy efficiency of coordinated fleet operations is remarkable, much better than individual species acting alone. Which brings us back to the Kepler system, Rodriguez said. Counselor Vex, the Empire can participate in the joint colonization project as equal partners, following the same rules as everyone else. Or you can continue trying to manipulate and control other species. But if you choose manipulation, Drax added with a threatening smile, you'll be doing it alone. 13 species are watching you now. 13 species who know your methods. Vex looked at the displays showing evidence of Empire manipulation at the United Fleet in space and at the representatives of species who had been enemies an hour ago but were now planning cooperation. The Empire requires time to consider these proposals, he said finally. Of course, Rodriguez replied. Take all the time you need. But remember, every day you spend deciding is another day that 13 species are learning to work together without you. The arena fell quiet except for the hum of holographic projectors showing the bright future of the Kepler system. A future built on cooperation instead of conquest, on abundance instead of artificial scarcity. High Counselor Vex walked toward the exit, no longer blocked by anyone. But he moved like a being who had just watched his entire worldview collapse. In the span of an hour. Counselor, Rodriguez called after him. When you're ready to be partners instead of predators, you know where to find us. 6 months later, Commander Jessica Walsh stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Kepler 442b. The view through the transparent aluminum windows showed 3 planets buzzing with activity. Ships moved between worlds like busy. Insects carrying workers, supplies, and resources in a carefully coordinated dance. The first planet hosted the main coordination center, where representatives from 13 species worked together in a building designed to accommodate everyone's environmental needs. The Valorians had insisted on high ceilings and dramatic lighting. The aquatic species required water-filled chambers connected by tubes. The crystalline beings needed special lighting that enhanced their natural energy absorption. Status report, please, Walsh said to Captain Rodriguez, who had remained at Kepler as the human coordinator for the joint colony project. Exceeding all projections, Rodriguez replied, reviewing data on his tablet. The Valorians have extracted 40%, more rare metals than any single species operation could have managed. The extreme heat doesn't bother them at all, and they're actually enjoying the challenge. Walsh watched Valorian ships rising from the second planet's surface, their heat-resistant hulls glowing red from the intense temperatures. They carried loads of platinum, rare earth elements, and exotic minerals that would have been impossible for other species to extract. The Crystalline Collective has turned the third planet into the most efficient energy production facility in known space, Rodriguez continued. They're harvesting geothermal energy from under the ice and distributing it to mining operations, orbital refineries, and even other star systems. Through the station windows, Walsh could see the crystalline energy platforms floating above the four. Ice world, their diamond-like structures converting planetary heat into usable power. Streams of pure energy flowed along invisible pathways to receiving stations throughout the system. And the other species? Walsh asked. Everyone found their niche, Rodriguez said with satisfaction. The insect collective is handling precision, manufacturing in zero gravity. Their compound eyes are perfect for quality control on complex electronics. The plant-like beings are managing atmospheric processing and life support systems. Even the aquatic species found a role managing the water recycling systems. Dr. Emily Carter joined them at the observation window, carrying a stack of reports from the cultural exchange programs. The most interesting development has been the knowledge sharing, she said. Valorian metallurgy techniques combined with crystalline energy manipulation have created alloys that none of our species could have developed alone. What about the Nexus Empire? Walsh asked. Rodriguez and Carter exchanged glances. That's complicated, Rodriguez admitted. High Counselor Vex left the system 3 months ago, Carter explained. But about half of the Nexus Empire representatives stayed behind. They wanted to participate in the cooperative model. It turns out that many Nexus citizens were tired of the constant manipulation and artificial conflicts, Rodriguez added. They had the skills for logistics and planning, but they wanted to use those skills for construction instead of conquest. Walsh watched a group of mixed-species ships working together to construct a new orbital platform. Valorian strength, crystalline energy, Nexus precision, and human coordination, all focused on the same goal. Any word from the Empire leadership? She asked. They've been quiet, Carter said, but our intelligence suggests they're having internal problems. When people realize their government has been manufacturing wars for profit, they tend to get upset. Rebellions? Walsh asked. More like peaceful resistance, Rodriguez replied. Nexus colonies are refusing to participate in aggressive expansion. Their own people are demanding the cooperative model instead of the traditional conquest model. Communication alert chimed on Rodriguez's tablet. He read the message and smiled. What is it? Walsh asked. Message from the Galactic Council. 5 more species want to join the Kepler project. They've heard about our success and want to learn the cooperative model. Carter laughed. We're going to need a bigger coordination center. Through the observation window, they watched as a new ship approached the station. It was sleek and unfamiliar, clearly from a species they hadn't encountered before. Unknown vessel. This is Kepler Coordination Station, came the voice of the traffic controller, a Valorian named Thez, who had learned to speak 8 different languages in the past 6 months. Please state your business. This is Captain Nira. Of the independent Nexus ship Freedom, came the reply. We're seeking sanctuary and requesting permission to join your cooperative project. Walsh raised an eyebrow. Independent Nexus ship? There's a growing movement of Nexus Empire ships declaring independence, Rodriguez explained. They want to participate in cooperative projects instead of conquest missions. Permission granted, Thez said over the communication system. Welcome to Kepler 442b. Please proceed to Docking Bay 12 for processing. Walsh watched the Nexus ship dock alongside vessels from 12 other species. The docking bay was a marvel of engineering, with environmental controls that could accommodate any known species and translation systems that could handle hundreds of languages. Status of the expansion plans? Walsh asked. Ahead of schedule, Rodriguez replied. We're already identifying 3 more star systems that could benefit from the cooperative model. But we're being careful not to grow too fast. Why? Walsh asked. Carter answered. Because success like this makes some people nervous. There are other empires and confederations out there that profit from conflict and scarcity. They see what we're doing as a threat to their business models. Let them be nervous, Walsh said. They can join us or compete with us, but they can't stop us. A new alert appeared on Rodriguez's tablet. He read it and grinned. What now? Walsh asked. Challenge. From the hegemony of worlds. They claim we're violating their territorial expansion rights. They want to meet at neutral ground to settle the dispute. Walsh sighed. Another warrior species that thinks might makes right? Probably, Rodriguez said. But they picked the wrong humans to intimidate. Are you going? Walsh asked. Of course, Rodriguez replied. But this time I'm bringing representatives from all 13 species. Let's see how the hegemony handles negotiating with a united coalition instead of isolated opponents. Carter smiled. They probably think it's just going to be another fight. They're right, Rodriguez said, looking out at the thriving colonies below. But we're going to make it a lesson. We're going to show them what real strength looks like. Walsh nodded, watching ships from 13 different species working together to build something greater than any of them could achieve alone. What had started as a simple territorial dispute had become a new model for galactic civilization. Same strategy as before? She asked. Why change what works? Rodriguez replied. We'll show them that cooperation creates more wealth than conquest, that partnership builds more than domination, and that the strongest civilizations are the ones that lift everyone up instead of pushing everyone down. Through the observation window, they watched the sun set over the first planet, casting long shadows across construction sites where former enemies worked side by side. In the distance, the lights of the orbital refineries twinkled like stars, powered by energy that crystalline beings had freely shared with everyone. It was beautiful. It was efficient. It was everything that the old model of galactic politics wasn't. And it was just the beginning.